Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're gonna take a look at some more of the newly buffed moves for Open Great League with Mantine with its newly buffed Aerial Ace that now costs 5 less energy, which in my opinion is a pretty significant upgrade, and then also probably my favorite buff Pokemon for this season, Diggersby with Scorching Sands. The thing is, beforehand you were kind of forced to use Fire Punch as the bait move because you can't use a 65 and an 80 energy move together, it's simply too slow. But with a 50 energy ground type move, it opens up the flexibility of Diggersby's moveset, and now you can use a ground type move in Scorching Sands and Hyper Beam together. Fire Punch is still viable, I think Quick Attack is definitely mandatory, but with Hyper Beam on the save swap, Diggersby has play against Pelipper, Mantine and Venusaur, just to name a few. And yeah, it's just a really good save swap and a really good Pokemon altogether. Let's take a look at the battles. Going into the first game, we lead into an Azumarill. Very good lead for Mantine, and very good that we don't see this in the back because both of our back two Pokemon do not enjoy these water types. We can't go for the Aerial Ace almost immediately. The thing is, at these lower ranked battles, I find that a lot of people throw their moves immediately. So by trying to set it up so that if they throw immediately, they throw in bad timing, you're gonna sneak in quite a lot of fast moves. So that's what I'm trying to do, which is also why I'm not throwing here. Because if they throw immediately, as they did the second time around, they threw on bad timing. And because I made them throw on bad timing, I get a point. I know, I have a weird sense of humor. And then we can make it to an Aerial Ace. Of course, it takes 5 for the Ice Beams for a Azumarill. And the next Aerial Ace should be just about enough, so they swap out into a Trevenant, into a loaded Mantine, which I would not suggest you do just in general. I can make it to an Ice Beam here, but they would be able to outpace to a Seed Bomb or get to it on the CMP, so I'm just going to go for the Aerial Ace instead. Ice Beam is of course hitting harder, but the Aerial Ace puts it into farm down range for the Steelix, so we can swap in the Steelix and just take this move. They go for the Seed Bomb. Once again, I would not suggest this because they're not making it to another one. Shadow Ball is definitely the way. But then they bring in a Medicham and we can make it to an Earthquake, which would do a lot of damage if it lands to this Medicham. And it does do a lot of damage. Then we can just about make it to the Breaking Swipers as well. This would actually not take out the Medicham. It only does about 16% amazingly. Medicham is very bulky, but they do shield it up, which is very nice. And then I bring in Mantine. I should probably wait out my switch timer. I go up to right before they make it to their move, and then I wait a turn to make it a CMP, because by forcing the CMP, I put them into farm down range whilst being switch locked and energy dry. So now I can let my Mantine go down and then bring in the Diggersby to farm them all the way down afterwards. Very nice. And then, of course, we come out with energy on the Diggersby, which it doesn't really matter in this situation. It's just a fun little trick, and you can maybe use it in other situations. In this match, it doesn't really matter because we're already so far ahead with 2 shields up and a Medicham that's almost dead in the first place. We could go for the Scorching Sands, but you probably know me at this point. I'm going for the Hyper Beam, and it takes out the Medicham. Very nice first game. Next game, we lead into another Azumarill. This time, not an Excel Azumarill. Let's see if we can make them throw on bad timing once again. I'm having way too much fun with this, trying to make the opponent throw on bad timing game that I'm playing for myself. So I'm setting it up so if they go for the Ice Beam immediately, they throw on bad timing. And they do. I get another point. Yay. Bad timing. Then they swap into a Galvantula. I react a little bit too slowly and then swap in Diggersby. I kind of panicked, not gonna lie, when I saw the Volt Switch go through, so I swapped into Diggersby. Steelix absolutely walls this, but Diggersby is also a pretty good counter to it, as long as it doesn't have Energy Ball, of course, which, who runs Energy Ball in their Galvantula? Except for this guy. It's still a good matchup for Diggersby. We can make it to the Scorching Sands, and then they try to go for the CMP with the lunge. It is 4 Volt Switches for the Energy Ball, but 3 for the lunges, so there should be 2 away from the next one, so we can overfarm, and then go for another Scorching Sands. Even with Energy Ball, this is still a good matchup for Diggersby, so it's absolutely fine, as they shield the second Scorching Sands as well, and we have to shield another lunge if we want to keep alignment, which we do, because we want the Mantine on a Azumarill and not Steelix. So we shield it up, they swap back into Azumarill, we swap back into Mantine, and we are still not in a range where one move from Azumarill will take out Mantine, because an Ice Beam only does about 27%, and a Play Rough only does about 33%. So it's absolutely fine, we can make it to yet another Aerial Ace here. And then after they land this move, I realized if I go for an Aerial Ace and take them out, I leave my Mantine energy dry or close to and in farm range. So I know that they're going to be able to get to a move, but I would rather, like, I know that they have a Galvantula in the back, and I don't really care which of my Pokemon sees the Galvantula, so I would rather leave their Azumarill in farm range rather than leave my own Mantine in farm range, if that makes sense. Bring in the Diggersby to farm out down the Azumarill, and then they bring in a Tropius. We go straight for the Hyper Beam. Obviously, they have no shields. It lands, does massive damage, bring in the Steelix, and the opponent concedes the match. The Hyper Beam is actually more energy efficient against grass types than Fire Punch is, amazingly. Next game, yes, you are correct. I led into Azumarill 3 games in a row, or the first 3 games with this team. I don't go for the Aerial Ace to set it up to make them throw in bad timing this time. I don't really know. I guess I'm giving myself -1 point for that. But this time, they are 2 bubbles away from the Ice Beam. Will they throw it immediately? Can we get back the point? Yes, of course. Low rank. CMP, all that, yes. Not CMP, though. Bad timing, yay. We can't go for the Aerial Ace, and of course they should be 4 away from the next Ice Beam, and now you're going to see how dominant of a matchup this actually is for Mantine, because we can't go up to the CMP tie, which Mantine does win. This will take out the Azumarill, and we're going to be able to come out with a lot of energy on Mantine. This is an ABB team, I haven't said this before, but I kind of like to save the energy on Mantine in case there's like a ground type or like a mud boy or a fighting type or something, and then swap into Diggersby, they swap into Venusaur, and as you're going to see, Scorching Sand is a move that can debuff attack. So by landing 1 Scorching Sand on Venusaur, I can shield twice, quick attack them all the way down, and now I'm going to be able, because Sableye is the last Pokemon remaining, I can farm the Venusaur all the way down with Diggersby. I do have to give up 2 shields, but come up with a lot of energy. And now if we get a debuff, which is a 30% chance on the Sableye, they cannot clear that debuff for the rest of the game. I get very lucky, and we get the debuff on the very first Scorching Sands. We can get 2 another Scorching Sands as well, and Diggersby is still not in a range where 1 foul play is enough, but at this point we can just swap into the Steelix after they shield both Scorching Sands on their Sableye, and because we got that debuff, this foul play does even less damage to the already bulky Steelix. They can make it to another foul play. I think they threw in bad timing both times with their Sableye. Do I get 2 more points from that? I don't think so, because I didn't place them into the bad timing range. Well, we can make it to the Earthquake, and this takes out the Sableye. That's the important part, although I think maybe bad timing is more important to me. No, yeah, wins are more important. Next game, we lead into a very awkward lead in the Galarian Stunfisk, because we kind of want to swap out, but we can't really, because the Steelix really doesn't want to see this, because we want to see if there's a fighting type or something like that in the back, because this is an ABB team, as I say. So I go for the Ice Beam to put them into a range where 1 Earthquake from Steelix is enough to KO later, to give Steelix a lot more play potentially later, and then I swap into Diggersby, they swap into a Dragonite, and this is actually not that bad of a matchup. With Fire Punch, this is actually pretty good for Diggersby, but because we're not running the Fire Punch, and I'm expecting them to potentially expect the Fire Punch, we go straight for the Hyper Beam, but they shield it. But they go for the farm down, and we will be able to make it to a Scorching Sand. Because the quick attacks have done so much damage to this Shadow Dragonite, they still have to shield this. It does about 24%, and it would have taken them out, so they have to double shield. I'm expecting them to potentially just blind throw the Dragon Claw, expecting the Mantine, so bring in my Steelix. They do go for the Dragon Claw. We can farm them down afterwards. Very nice. And then they bring back in the Stunfisk. They did save a lot of energy earlier because I didn't catch the Rock Slide, so they were at the Earthquake here, so we can shield it up. Then farm up. They will make it to another Earthquake before we get to our Earthquake, but that's still absolutely fine. Now they should be dry after throwing this Earthquake, so we can overfarm quite a lot with Steelix. Go for the Earthquake? No, actually not. We go for the Breaking Swipe instead because they tried to catch the Earthquake on Altaria. Go for the Breaking Swipe. Go for yet another Breaking Swipe. And if you thought Galarian Stunfisk was a wall to Altaria, just look at how pathetic damage this Altaria is doing to Steelix after taking 2 Breaking Swipes. They get to the Moonblast, and this just does absolutely no damage to Steelix. We farm them all the way down, come out with the Earthquake for the Galarian Stunfisk, and this is of course going to take out the Galarian Stunfisk, and that is a very good game. Next game, very good lead into a Shadow Swampert. We absolutely wall this unless they're running Sludge Wave and they're staying in. So we're just gonna farm up a lot of energy. I don't mind taking some moves here, but they farm up to an Earthquake and then they swap out into another Mud Boy. What the hell is this team opponent? How, like, Do grass types not exist in your world? I guess not. But well, we make it 2 back-to-back aerial ace, throw both of them. I could maybe swap into Diggersby because Diggersby actually has a quite good matchup against Quagsire. Or I can just shield twice, hope that I'm going to be able to take out the Quagsire with Mantine and then save it for the Swampert later. Of course we want to save the Mantine for the Swampert because our back 2 Pokemon really do not want to see Swampert. Go for the aerial ace right before they make it to another Stone Edge. It takes 7/6/6 for the Stone Edges. Luckily they're not baiting me, so we can shield up both of these Stone Edges. We're just about not going to be able to farm them down, so we catch the 3rd Stone Edge onto Diggersby, and now we're going to be able to farm them down afterwards. Very nice once again. Of course, we're basically going to sacrifice the Diggersby at this point, which is not ideal because Swampert has a lot of energy. They went out with 8 mud shots, so they should be at 100 energy at this point. Going for the first Hydro Cannon, I thought they would go for the back-to-back, but they let me get 2 Scorching Sands on their Shadow Swampert. And then I was a little bit confused at first with this, but it makes a lot of sense. Because the Swampert really doesn't have a lot of play. Even with energy, it doesn't have a lot of play into Mantine. Now they've left me with no energy in farm range for Shadow Charizard. And they bring in the Shadow Charizard to get a huge farm down. Very nice play by the opponent, but I still just have so much energy on my Mantine. And Charizard does have some play into Mantine with energy, but yeah, that Dragon Claw really didn't do a lot of damage. We can go for 1 Ice Beam, because I'm going for Ice Beam because 1 Ice Beam is basically enough to take out the Shadow Charizard with the wing attack damage. So we can make it to the 2nd Ice Beam, does massive damage. They will make it to another Dragon Claw, but this is not going to take out the Mantine. So the Steelix is not even going to see any play this game. Mantine just takes out Charizard. They were very weak to Mantine. My opponent must have thought something along the lines of yikes when they saw that Mantine. Next game, lead into a very neutral lead. We have neutral matchups across the board. So I swap out because it's an ABB team, and they swap into a Noctowl. And well, if you're running Mud Shot and Fire Punch, this is a very good matchup for Noctowl. If you're running Quick Attack Fire Punch, it's actually pretty good for Diggersby. If you're running Quick Attack Hyper Beam, this is very good for Diggersby. This is really not a good response to Diggersby. We go straight for the Hyper Beam, does massive damage, and because of the nerf to Sky Attack, it now takes 7/6/6/6 for the Noctowl to get to its Sky Attacks, meaning it will get to 2. But it won't be able to make it to 3 as we found them all the way down, come out with a ton of energy on Diggersby. And because they have a Ghost type in Sableye, they won't be able to farm us down. So we will be able to make it to 1 Scorching Sands, do just about 40%, make it to yet another Scorching Sand on the Sableye. And as I say, these Shadow Claws, they're just not going to be able to farm us down, so they have to throw a charge move into Diggersby as well. They do overfarm quite nice to right before we make it to the move, but now I'm just going to be able to bring in the Steelix. It doesn't really matter which Pokemon I bring in. They bring in a Stunfisk. I feel like it's a little bit too uncomfortable of a bait matchup with Steelix, and I know that Mantine up a shield will be able to handle the Stunfisk, or at the very least put it into a range where I can Dragon Tail it down with Steelix. So we make it to the Ice Beam. I go for the CMP because I wasn't too sure of the attack stat of Mantine in this game. Actually, I didn't look it up. It has roughly the same attack stat as a Medicham, so we will be able to win the CMP against Stunfisk. They will be able to outpace us. Of course, it takes 5 for the Rock Slides every time. It takes 7 for the Ice Beams for Mantine, and they did get a little bit of an energy head start, but now we can make it to the CMP. And then I make a huge mistake by going for the CMP because their switch timer came up a little bit before mine, so they can actually catch it on Sableye, and this is a bit of a problem. But I farm back up to the Ice Beam, save the Ice Beam, they make it to a foul play, which is a big problem for my Steelix, because Steelix can take an Earthquake from Galarian Stunfisk, but it can't take an Earthquake after they've landed a foul play. But we know that Mantine is going to be able to win CMP. We know that they're in Ice Beam range. So if I can just grab the shield here, Mantine should be able to win this game. So it might look like some overkill that I'm going for the Earthquake, but I think my only lose con here is going for the Breaking Swipes and having them no shielded. So I go straight for the Earthquake. And yeah, looks like overkill, but we grab the shield, and then we're going to be able to make it to this Ice Beam on Mantine with 1 HP and a Dream that got a little bit too close, but we win that game. Next game, another very good lead into a Diggersby. They swap into a Dugong, and we don't really have a good response to ice types, so we kind of have to stay in, at least for a little while. I don't really want to see the Diggersby on like my Steelix or anything like that. But after doing some damage, we take the Icy Wind, and then after getting the debuff, we can swap into Steelix, because now the Dugong is low enough to where Steelix can handle it. A drill run only does about 37%, so we can take it. It is comfortable taking the first one, but with the breaking swipe debuff, I was thinking that maybe I could live another one plus the ice shards. It only does about 30% from this range. I thought I could live this, so I no-shield it. Luckily, we're never going to find out because they went for the Ice of Wind, and now we can farm them all the way down, which is really nice. Come out with a lot of energy on Steelix. They will get a big farm down on Diggersby, so if they're running Hyper Beam, this might actually be a little bit problematic for Mantine as we make it to 1 Earthquake and then also make it to a Breaking Swipe as well. I went for the Earthquake first because I wanted to debuff them as late as possible to give them less farm, but now I can bring back in the Mantine. They swap out of the Diggersby. I'm kind of banking on the fact that they're running Fire Punch. It seems like they really don't want their Diggersby on my Mantine, so it looks like they're running Fire Punch, which... yeah, you're gonna see later. I'm making some decisions based on that. We can make it to a Hyper Beam. I go for the Scorching Sands just to... it's a lot of energy if they decide to shield, because they should know that my Diggersby... like, these are the moves that... like, Cresselia is their win condition if they're running Fire Punch on their Diggersby. So they should know that, like, they should shield the moves that potentially do the most damage to them. So expecting that they might actually shield the move from this Diggersby as they shield the second one. We go for it on the CMP, and at this point we're up a shield. I'm thinking my Mantine should be able to win this game for me. I make a bit of a mistake here, I think, in throwing a move, because this is not going to take out the Cresselia, obviously. If I don't throw this, I can just comfortably shield up the Grass Knot. I'm still going to shield up the Grass Knot, of course. But then I would be able to come out with a lot more energy to threaten the Diggersby on the swap afterwards. It's not really that much of a problem. It's just a small misplay, I think. They go for a move, I think, before they make it to a potential Hyper Beam, so I just no-shield it. It's only a Scorching Sands, which is actually more energy efficient than a Fire Punch, even though it is double resisted as opposed to single resisted. They can make it to another move after taking the Ice Beam. It's only another Scorching Sands. Mantine just takes that on the chin. We do get the attack debuff, but who cares? We make it to back-to-back aerial ace. The first one will, of course, grab the shield from the Cresselia, and then we can get off the second one as well. As the timer comes up, this is another thing I noticed with this team. It's pretty bulky. Sometimes the games take a little while as we take out the Cresselia, and that is another very good game. Next game, lead into a Medicham. Very good lead for Mantine. It picks up a lot of good leads, but when it picks up bad leads, it gets punished hard, like into Lantern or Registeel or something like that. So it's a little bit pulverizing like that. Has a lot of good leads, but yeah, some that are very bad. We bring back in the Steelix on this Frostlass. Steelix can win every even shield scenario, straight Breaking Swipe, but down 2 Powder Snows, we will lose the zero shield scenario, so we do have to shield up 1 move here, which is not ideal. They go for the Shadow Ball, meaning now there should be energy drive, so we can farm them all the way down with Steelix and come out with a lot of energy. But then the Medicham, I thought that maybe if I went for the Breaking Swipe, I would be able to make it to an Earthquake as well by debuffing their attack. But as we're gonna see, I can't quite make it to the Earthquake, so I have to settle for another Breaking Swipe. I think 1 Earthquake would have been preferred here. But the Medicham gets a nice farm down, and we're down a shield. This is not comfortable as they bring in a Shadow Charizard. I know that I want my Mantine on the Medicham. I don't want my Diggersby on the Medicham, so I bring in the Diggersby. This is actually not that bad of a matchup for Diggersby. I know that they're not going to bait because I only have 1 shield. So I actually shield it up and then go for the Scorching Sands right before they make it to another Blast Burn. A Blast Burn doesn't KO the Diggersby from this range because Diggersby is just an absolute tank, so then we'll make it to another Blast Burn. We get the attack drop, which is a little bit lucky. It wouldn't have KO'd anyway, so we'd still been able to make it to the Scorching Sands. We can farm up to right before they make it to the Dragon Claw, but then I realize if I take out the Charizard here, the Medicham is going to come in, it's going to farm down my Diggersby before I make it to another move, and then they're gonna get more energy. But if I undercharge the Scorching Sands perfectly, either they're gonna have to take out my Diggersby with a Dragon Claw, and then I can get farm on Mantine, or they're gonna have to let me take them out with my Diggersby, and then I might be able to make it to a Scorching Sands with Diggersby on Medicham. So this undercharge was absolutely amazing, because it means we're just about gonna be able to make it to a Scorching Sands on the Medicham. My opponent wisely realized that a Scorching Sands does less damage than an Aerial Ace, so they no-shield the Scorching Sands, even though it puts the Medicham very low. They make it to a Psychic, but Mantine is simply too bulky, and it has too much HP, so we farm down the Medicham, and that is another very good game. Next game, lead into a Shadow Beetle. We love to see this lead. Our entire team really likes to see this Beetle. Although I guess Steelix is not that comfortable. We can go up to the Aerial Ace and then wait a turn and then go for it. I was a little bit afraid of the catch because it makes a lot of sense for them to not want to take the Aerial Ace on Beetle. They farm up to a lot of energy and then they swap into an Azumarill. And this is a problem because our backline doesn't really want to take the energy, especially not Steelix doesn't want to take the drill runs from Beetle. It hurts a lot, but I can't really swap out of this situation. So I kind of have to stay in with my Mantine. Maybe my opponent, like they go for an Ice Beam here. I think this, if they have Play Rough, they should probably go for it because an Ice Beam only does about 27%. I think a Play Rough would have taken me out. And now we can make it to another Aerial Ace. And I think we're going to be able to make it to yet another Aerial Ace to just fully take out the Azumarill as well. Mantine it's actually really good. I'm a big fan of it. We make it to the next Aerial Ace. And I'm thinking I want to take the moves from Beetle on my Diggersby and not the Steelix. Diggersby can take them a lot more comfortably. So I let the Swampert that comes in farm me down, which is really not comfortable that it's a Shadow Swampert in the back, of course. They make it to the Hydro Cannon. They're one away from the next Hydro Cannon. So I just kind of assumed that they would throw it immediately. So I didn't go for the Breaking Swipe. I should have definitely gone for the Breaking Swipe. We go for it on the CMP, but because it's a CMP, I know I'm going to be able to get it off on the Swampert and either do big damage to the Swampert or take them out. They bring in the Beetle. They go for a move. This will take out the Steelix. Fine by me. The Swampert still has some energy. So I'm taking a look. They don't have any shields. I'm looking at how much damage does this move from Beetle do. If I can take 2, I'm just going to be able to farm them all the way down, come out with a move for the Swampert. It looks like I'm going to be able to take 2 from this Beetle. Fun fact, X-Scissor is actually more energy efficient than Drill Run from Beetle now because of the buff to X-Scissor. But we can take that move. We could have gone for the Scorching Sands on the Shadow Swampert. It would have taken it out. But we go for the Hyper Beam and it's a lot more fun. And once again, I fail another screenshot. Very nice. But we take it out. We win that game. Next game, lead into a Lantern. And as I say, if it's bad, it's really bad. Bring in the Diggersby on the Lantern. Luckily, they have Spark. If it had Water Gun, it would have been a big problem for our entire team. We can take 1 serve, and then they try to catch a move on their Trevenant. This is an absolutely atrocious play by the opponent. If I have Fire Punch, I can easily win Switch because they didn't catch the move. So, like, I would have just been able to get the Steelix onto the Lantern and then Mantine onto whatever they have in the back. But because I don't have Fire Punch, I guess Fire Punch is still viable. I'm not going to be able to force switch. We will, however, because of the nerf 2 Seed Bomb, we'll be able to outpace them 2-3 Scorching Sands before they make it to 2 Seed Bombs because we got such big energy advantage. So we'll be able to force either switch or a shield advantage, which we get a shield advantage, which is nice. I bring the Mantine in immediately because I know our switch timers are misaligned. So if they throw a Shadow Ball here, I'm going to be able to take it on Mantine, then bring in Steelix to farm them down before the switch timer comes up, get an energy head start on Steelix, and Steelix is obviously my win condition here because Mantine is not going to be able to do much when I don't have switch advantage against the Lantern. They go for a drill run after 7, so they should be 5 away from the next one. So I can do 3 more Dragon Tails and then go for the Earthquake. But they go for a move after only 5. I know this is only an Ice Punch, but this is a very good play by the opponent because it puts me into a range where 1 serve is enough to take me out. And they get it off before I get off the Earthquake. So now I'm in a range where 1 serve is enough to take me out. This is really not ideal. They can make it to that serve. I have to shield this up. Steelix cannot take it from this range. Mantine is definitely not going to be able to handle the Lantern from this range. Can make it to the Earthquake. Bait with a Breaking Swipe. But even with the bait, we're not going to be able to outpace this Lantern. They're 4 away. We go for 2 more Dragon Tails. Wait 1 turn. Bring in the Mantine. Catch the serve. It of course takes 6, 6, 6, 5 for the serves. And 8 for the Thunderbolts now with Spark Lantern. Just in case you didn't look it up anyways. But that was a very nice catch on the Mantine, but it just allows them to farm me all the way down. I will make it to back-to-back Aerial Aces. This will put the Lantern very low, but they just come out with a serve stored for my Steelix, and they win CMP. We did have the Breaking Swipe, but yeah. Very bad leads. Yeah, they're tough to come back from. We do lose that game, unfortunately. Next game, lead into a Lickitung. As I said, this is an ABB team, so if I see a lead where I have 3 very even matchups, I just swap out to see if there's a fighting type or something in the back. We do lure out the Medicham, which is very nice. We go for the Scorching Sands, and they actually shield up the first move. which is very surprising. We do get the attack drop, which is also very nice, of course. I could maybe go for 2 Scorching Sands here, because I would be able to make it to 2 Scorching Sands. I go for the Hyper Beam, which puts them into a range where they have to throw another move at me in order to take me out because of the attack drop. So they're forced to expend energy here, and now I have a shield advantage, and I'm going to be able to farm this Medicham down. They're only going to be able to make it to another Ice Punch. The reason why I didn't shield the Diggersby as well was because they were going to be able to make it to 2 Ice Punches. Bringing in the Mantine, they make it to 1 Ice Punch, doesn't really do a lot of damage. I'm expecting there's a potential to be another fighter in the back, so bring in the Steelix to lure it out. It is another fighter. I don't want to go for the Breaking Swipe immediately because it would have been on alignment. They throw in immediately, meaning we get an entire Dragon Tail through. We can make it to the Breaking Swipe. This is actually not that bad of a matchup for Steelix because Surfetch is so squishy. They go for another move immediately, meaning they throw on alignment again. We get in another full Dragon Tail through, and because we got in 2 full Dragon Tail through, we're going to be able to farm the Surfetch all the way down, come out with an Earthquake, and the opponent concedes the match. That was the last battle for today, and overall I think this team is really good. I'm really pleasantly surprised by Mantine, and Diggersby is absolutely amazing. Steelix, not so much. I think it's just a worse Registeel. It does have some niches where it does better, but Registeel is just the best steel type. Alolan Sandslash, the second best. I would suggest one of those 2 if you want to try out this team. Other than that, fun fact of the day, Diggersby beats Shadow Swampert in all even shield scenarios with 1 quick attacks advantage. You do need to land the Hyper Beam in the 0 shield scenario. It also beats Mantine in the 1s and 2s. The 2s is bait dependent. It beats Pelipper in the 0s. It can do things you really would not expect it to do with this moveset. Other than that, if you like the video, remember to leave a like. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel. And also a massive thank you to the members of the channel. Your support is very much appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.